Hello, everybody. I'm Ethan Minson, a 15-year-old award-winning sports journalist, and welcome to my interview with Nick Coutracos. He is the man behind Nick Knows Ball, one of the fastest-growing sports social media accounts on TikTok and Instagram. He's built a following by bringing his unique perspective, personality, and deep knowledge of sports, his elite ball knowledge, to the internet. He started off by going up to strangers and seeing if they have elite ball knowledge, and now he's going to places like Fanatics Fest, and his platform is soaring through the roof. He's amassed well over 300,000 followers, maybe even more, and I'm really glad that he could join me today. So thanks for being here, Nick.
Ethan, thank you for having me.
Of
How we doing?
course. I'm doing well, yeah. So the first question that I have for you, I'm sure everyone is curious to know just the story behind your account. Can you talk about the origins of Nick Knows Ball? When did you first create your page and what was the inspiration behind it in the first place?
hmm No, that's a great question. The inspiration came, I want to say back in November 2025 is when I started my page. So not too long ago, about 10 months ago. And I'd always had a passion for sports, mainly basketball, NBA. I was a huge NBA fan growing up, and I just wanted another way to express how I talk about basketball with my friends because I'm sure if you see my content, you can kind of get the gist where the stuff that I talk about is pretty much the same conversations that a lot of guys like me and you have with our friends when we're just hanging out at each other's houses, like in our basement, just riffing random names back and forth or just having these random debates.
Yeah.
And I always loved having those with my friends, but I wanted a way to expand that and just post about my thoughts online essentially. That's how it started. And so I remember sitting at my job. I worked in banking before this,
Mm.
and it was a standard 9 to 5 here in New York City. And I remember just like having some downtime at my desk, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna start posting like my random thoughts because I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna see if anyone else thinks the way I do or resonates with what I have to say.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of just how it started. I didn't think that there would be nearly as big of an audience or this many people that would be interested in EBK or elite ball knowledge or the things that no one really seems to talk about. I was dead wrong though, because clearly it hit pretty early on, dude. And so that's kind of how it started. I remember it was just, started off a whim, started as like, I got some free time. Let's just start this thing as a fun hobby, right?
Yeah.
But I also wanted to make sure that I was intentional about it because I do have some background with social media. So I've had sports accounts that I would grow back in high school, like,
Mm.
those like sports edit accounts. So I was one of those sports editors back in the day. I started on Vine actually. I grew a
Wow.
page called Game Time to 250K when I was 13 years old. And then on Instagram, I grew a page called Catches to 1.2 million followers, which was,
Dang.
um, yeah, that was, I started that when I was 15 years old, sold the page when I was 19, right before I got to college, and then kind of took a brief hiatus when I was in school.
Mhm.
That passion for not only sports but also just social media and just posting videos and whatnot was always there within me. I feel like I've always had that creative side to me, and I wasn't getting that kind of fix or that creative expression, so to speak, through
Right.
my job in banking. And so I was like, you know what, let me just start posting again. And that was 10 months ago. It's probably one of the greatest decisions that I've ever made because now I'm at a point where it is my full-time job and I'm able to do what I love every day.
Mm.
And nothing bad about having a 9 to 5 or banking. No, it's a great job that a lot of people would kill to have. But for
Mhm.
me, it wasn't what I had truly wanted to do with my life. So yeah, man, that's just kind of how it all started. And it's been a crazy journey. It's been 10 months now, and I'm sitting here in an interview with you talking about it, which is even crazy to me. But yeah, that's kind of the origin story of how Nick Knows Ball started and how it got to where it is now.
Yeah, it's awesome. It's been amazing to follow your journey. I think just yesterday I saw someone make some sort of obscurity index based off of the work that you do. And I mean, it's amazing to see. And my question to you, you mentioned that you've always been a big fan of the NBA. When and how did you first fall in love with the NBA?
I want to say, so believe it or not, I was actually a big soccer guy growing up.
Really?
When I was a kid, soccer was my number one sport. I loved soccer. I'm a Chelsea fan because of Didier Drogba.
Hmm.
But I want to say my basketball fandom really started in fourth grade when I first started playing basketball. And I kind of just fell in love with watching the NBA. I'm from Boston, so I'm a
Yeah.
Celtics fan. I went to a bunch of Celtics games with my dad growing up. I'll never forget the first game I went to. I think it was 2010 Celtics Nuggets.
Okay.
First possession of the game, Rondo's driving into the paint. Everyone collapses, and he does a behind the neck
Mm.
pass to Ray Allen, who's sitting on the perimeter and just cashes a three. If you go on Rondo's top 10 career assists, it's actually on that YouTube video, which is
Oh wow.
insane. That was the first NBA possession that I ever witnessed in real time. And that's I remember seeing that moment, like looking up at my dad, like cheering, and the rest of the crowd going crazy, and I was like, "This is the best sport ever! Like I love this." And so that's I want to say kind of the inception of when my basketball fandom started. And then not only that, I was a big gamer growing up, so I loved playing Xbox. And 2K was my number one game. 2K11 was the first game I ever purchased.
Mm.
And dude, I just no lifed that game. Like I'm talking about so many hours spent on that game. And at the time, it was just, a fun hobby. I played that game in, 2K12, 13, 14, all throughout the 2010s. It was just a fun hobby to me. Little did I know the amount of hours that I spent and all the elite ball knowledge that I attained through not only playing 2K but watching the NBA would later turn into a career for myself, which is
Mhm.
crazy to even say out loud. But yeah, that's kind of how it all started, and then it was like a just like a ripple effect from there. It just got deeper and deeper, and I just obviously love the stars of the game. Like everyone loves talking about the Steph Currys, the LeBrons, the Kevin Durant's, as I did too. I had a LeBron fat head and I had a Kevin Durant fat head in my room, like life size growing up. But sit for playing as much 2K as I played and watching as much basketball as I did, I also just grew a liking to seeing the guys at the end of the bench and, would maybe get a few minutes a game and just seeing their play styles and how they impacted the court and the pace of play and the game style too. So, yeah, dude, that's just kind of how it all started. And now we're here. And now that's the majority of what I post about online. And yeah, man, it's just been crazy. But now we're here.
It sounds incredible. Like, I mean, you grew up with Rondo and Ray Allen. I was stuck with Omri Caspi, who's a great player, by the way. But I mean, it's really cool to hear about. And you mentioned this earlier. You had a career in banking, you had a finance degree. So I guess originally I was going to ask, the process from switching from finance to basketball content, but I guess I can maybe restructure that question and ask, at what point did you realize within Nick Knows Ball that this is going to be a full-time thing versus something that you do on the side? Was there a specific
Mhm.
moment?
Yeah, so I'll answer that in two parts. The first time I realized that this definitely has some legs was really early on. It was very obscure. It was probably 3 to 4 days into me posting. And granted,
Okay.
I was posting probably 10 times a day. Like I was very intentional about if I was going to start doing this, I was going to be very, adamant on posting every day and multiple times a day.
Hmm.
But I want to say 3 or 4 days in, I made a video about Joe Johnson. It wasn't even a video. It was a selfie that I took literally at my desk at my job with text over it saying, I don't care how old you are. If Joe Johnson is on an island, everyone take a seat. Class is in
Hmm.
session with a Kanye song in the background. And the Brooklyn Nets admin commented on that post and was like, this guy knows ball or something like that. And I was like, this is insane. Like I literally just started posting a few days ago. I'm having NBA teams comment on my posts. So that's when I first realized like, whoa, like this is, people are seeing this. Like people are their eyes are that are on this. But when I first realized that there's a potential career out of this is when the New York Knicks invited me out to a game in January.
Hmm.
And as a fan of the game, I'm there, I'm at the game, I'm super appreciative. I'm telling everyone, like all the media guys that invited me out, thank you so much for having me. This is such a great time. They had me down on the court during warmups.
Awesome.
And it was, dude, it was such a surreal experience. But what they said to me was 100% like we're so glad that you're appreciative of being here, but you also got to realize, Nick, like you are providing us value too. And that was kind of like a mindset shift for me because at the time I had probably 30,000 followers. The reason why they invited me out to the game was because of all-star voting. It was around that time period, and they wanted me to post some stories of the Knicks starting five with
Okay.
all-star voting links. And that was kind of like the value prop that I was bringing to them. I didn't really see it that way because I love basketball so much, and this was my first real, event appearance. I wasn't even thinking about it that way. I was just like, oh my god, I'm at a Knicks game right now that the Knicks invited me out to. But then I took a step back and I realized, like, wait, I kind of belong in these rooms too because I'm providing value. The way that I have eyes on my content, and the fans that I love have that watch my content, like that's value in and of itself.
Right.
So that was, and at the same time, dude, that was probably 2 months into me posting. So it was really quick, but that's the moment when I realized, like, wait, there's something here with a potential career path. I didn't know at the time that it could be my full-time job literally 3 months later, but that's when I realized, like, there's there's something here. This has some legs for sure. So yeah, dude, it was crazy. And then after that, more partnerships started to come, more brands started reaching out, and that's when it really solidified the confidence I had in myself and to keep this going.
Yeah, absolutely. Hearing about your journey, it's really inspiring. And, I'm kind of curious, like to kind of take a step, well, not necessarily a step back, but more as a point of reflection, Started out 10 months ago. Now you're here, going to Fanatics Fest, doing some incredible things. When you look back at this whole progression, I mean, you've had accounts in the past, as you mentioned, reach a pinnacle, 1 million followers. But with Nick Knows Ball specifically, what's this whole journey just been like for you, if you can sum it up in a way? And what's been the most surreal moment so far?
That's a great question. I mean, as cliche as it sounds, it has seriously been life changing. Like I said
Mhm.
earlier, this was probably one of the best decisions that I've ever made was to start posting content. It's just been, I try to remind myself every day to just take a step back and be so appreciative of where I'm at because it has been such a quick rise to success, so to speak. And so I don't want to ever let that get to my head. And I want to always remain grounded in where I am and just appreciate the progress that I've made, but also the progress I'm going to continue to make. I don't want to stay content, so to speak, and be comfortable. But the most surreal moment that I had was actually the same night the Knicks invited me out to the game. I was interviewing Stephon Marbury at halftime.
Mm.
That was the first interview that I ever did, and I was freaking out leading up to it, dude. The interview was at halftime, and I was at the game. They let me bring a plus one, so I brought one of my best friends, and we were at the game. And during halftime, or during the first half, I could barely even pay attention to the game because I just kept looking down on my phone on my notes app, just prepping for these questions because it was the first interview that I ever did. I was so nervous, and not only was it the first interview, it was a NBA great, Stephon Marbury. So I
Right.
was freaking out inside. I remember the first, like, leading up to the interview when I was waiting on the carpet for him to come. My heart was pounding. It was literally beating out of my chest. And then realized after it, really quickly, dude, like 20 seconds into the interview, I was like, hold on, this guy is just like a normal dude. Like we're all just normal people. A lot of these NBA players, a lot of these athletes, a lot of these celebrities, they're just like me and you. They just happen to have a lot of eyes on them, a lot of attention. But when you're having a face-to-face conversation with them, you're just talking to another human. So,
Right.
but after it was insane. I mean, I definitely acted like a fan. I had a Knicks hat that I got. I asked him to sign it for me. It was such a cool moment, and that's when I was like, just so surreal, dude. I had to just take a step back and just, like I said, appreciate the the path that I was on. And then the second half of the game was a lot more enjoyable because I was able
Yeah.
to actually watch the game and look back on the interview. And Stephon Marbury was a great interview. He gave me a solid 5 minute interview. Really great personality. Really great guy. I've actually connected with him afterwards too.
It's
But
awesome.
it was amazing, dude.
Yeah, that first interview is always really tough. I think I was at the California Classic, one of the early summer league games, and I saw Darvin Ham was sitting like 2 rows in front of me. So my dad told me you should go and interview him, but like I was shaking. But that first interview, once it's out of the way, you're able to do things like this.
Exactly.
But yeah, incredible experience for you. I mean, Starbury, that's not EBK, but it's still like somebody that I think you might see in TikTok comment sections of, I don't know if you've seen them, like name elite ball knowledge, but people are saying, Joe Johnson rather than some elite
Yeah.
players that you've received. And speaking of that, I'm curious to know, for people who don't know, the question that you go up and ask everybody that you interview typically. I mean, there are a couple variations, but the main one is name an obscure role player that proves you have elite ball knowledge. What's the most interesting answer that you've received?
That's a great question. And there's not even one that I can pinpoint because now it's gotten to a point where people are expecting me to ask them this question. So they're coming pre-planned with names. And
Yeah.
now it's gotten crazy to the point where I'm getting names I have genuinely never heard of. So I genuinely forget some of these polls that I've been receiving. I'm getting guys now who didn't even play a game in the NBA. They were just, maybe signed a 10-day road pine for the entire time and didn't even sniff the court. Like guys are going deep on basketball
Mhm.
reference. But but there's always the common ones. I mean, let me try and think here. Pablo Prigioni
Yeah.
was a common poll that I got, but due to ball knowledge inflation, everyone's becoming pre-prepared and everyone's ready for this question. He's definitely not EBK anymore. So that's another thing. It's like a whole other stratosphere of ball knowledge that I didn't even expect would happen due to the content that I've been posting is because now guys that were ball knowledge, everyone knows now just because people are seeing their name more often. There could be one viral video that pops off, and now that guy is, top of the search bar for a week.
Hmm.
And so it's ever changing, dude, which is all the crazy thing, too. Everyone has their different perspectives on what's ball knowledge and what's not, which I kind of like, too, because it's open ended discussion.
Hmm.
It's not just like, people kind of look at me as like the arbiter of ball knowledge where like I make the final decision, but it's like, dude, it changes. It changes
Yeah.
every day. There could be a guy that's ball knowledge today that isn't 1 week from now. So
Mhm.
it's an interesting concept for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And especially during the NBA season, everything's subject to change. And kind of like what you were saying, I saw a TikTok video that you made recently talking about that exact point. It also reminds me of hoop grids. You put in a name
Yep.
that you think is the most obscure possible, and then it turns out that's a 0.14%. It's not a unicorn. But
you know. Yeah, I can tell you've had your fair share on hoop grids.
yeah. So another question that I have for you, you kind of touched upon this briefly. As you said, people sometimes think of you as the arbiter of ball knowledge. I guess my question is, what's the biggest misconception people have about what knowing ball actually means?
That's another great question. Yeah. I want to say a big misconception that people think ball knowledge is just knowing an obscure name,
Mm.
because anyone can go on Google, anyone can go on basketball reference, see a first name and a last name and just remember it. And they say, yep, that's ball knowledge. In my
Yeah,
opinion, true ball knowledge is a guy that had somewhat of an impact on the league. And so that might mean they were in the league for 3, 4, 5 years and had somewhat of an impact. It's not the most obscure guy, but it's also not a guy who was a starter. It's not a guy who was an all-star by any means. But you know him to the extent where you know what position they were, you know what their play style was. They might have even had a slight impact in a playoff run first round by for example,
yeah,
Um, it's not only like yes, this goes back to my whole thing about how subjective ball knowledge is because I think to an extent it is a little bit about just knowing the most random guy possible, but that's not all it is. It's
right.
kind of a holistic approach to ball knowledge. So I think there's like a sweet spot where it's a guy that the average NBA fan would have no idea who he is, but you do, and you know that he had somewhat of an impact in the league, not much, but a little bit,
Yeah.
and his play style, the role that he had and whatnot, and yeah, like for example, James On Curry played 3.9 seconds in the NBA.
Hmm.
He is considered ball knowledge, but at the same time, it's like you only know him for one reason.
True.
It's because he had the shortest career in NBA history. He had no impact on an NBA court. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? So it's subjective for sure.
definitely. Yeah. You got to know something about him for sure. And another question that I have for you, kind of looking at the bigger picture of what sports media is going to become or may become. You've had an insane rise to stardom, and there have been many other creators on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram who have seen similar rises. So my question for you is, do you think with, these social media outlets allowing creators to reach huge audiences without going through traditional media, like without NBC or ABC or ESPN, do you think that creators are starting to play a much bigger role in how fans consume sports news, opinions, and entertainment? And do you think TikTok or these kind of platforms could eventually just take over?
Hmm. I do think that creators are starting to pave a way in sports media. And I think the primary reason for that is because there's a certain level of trust that the average viewer has more towards a creator than maybe a talk show or,
Mhm.
an ESPN segment. And I think that's because at the end of the day, we're also fans. Like me and you are the exact same. I'm just making a video on it and you're the one viewing it, but we have the same exact perspective. I don't
Yeah.
have any ties to a corporation or any motivations or any agenda that I'm trying to push, except for my own thoughts that I'm just spitting out loud and I happen to be recording myself. So I think that's why viewers tend to, in my opinion, gravitate more towards creators is because there's that level of similarity and relatability that we have where you can still achieve that on a talk show or a sports show segment, but I think there's more barriers that you have to cross and more hurdles that you have to get over to be able to reach that level of trust.
True.
Whereas a creator, like me, for example, all I'm doing is I'm just taking my phone and I'm just taking a selfie style video, or maybe I'm doing an interview on the street. I'm not doing much. There's not a huge production or a set that I'm doing for this. It's just me in my room, literally right now. I'm in my apartment room here in New York City, just speaking out loud what I have to think. So I think that's why viewers tend to gravitate more towards creators. And do I think that it could, overtake traditional media? I really do at some point. I think both have their different value props
Right.
whereas it's much more professional. You know exactly what you're getting when you're tuning into First Take or a segment like that.
Mhm.
But if you kind of want more of that surprise factor where you don't really know what you're getting, I think you go on TikTok, you go on Instagram, you go on these social medias, you don't know what you're going to get. And so I
True.
think that's why another reason why viewers tend to gravitate more towards that is because you could be hit with an idea or a thought that you've never even seen before, delivered in a way that you've never seen before. And with the way that TikTok is built and Instagram with Reels, you could see a guy who literally posted their first ever video. You've never seen this guy before, but he has a viral video that pops off, and that's a whole different perspective, a whole nother point of view that you've never seen. And the barrier to entry is also so low because like I said, all you need is a phone
Yeah.
and to be able to hit the record button. You don't need the qualifications or the resume to hop on an ESPN segment or something like that to be able to voice your opinion. It's so much easier now for the average sports fan to be able to speak their mind. So yeah, dude, I think at some point in time, I don't know if it'll overtake traditional media, but I definitely think it could compete with it for sure.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, when you look at traditional media, sometimes they talk more about larger markets, or usually they talk more about teams like the Cowboys or the Lakers and rumors that are surrounding them. But when you look at content creation, since Instagram, TikTok are catered to a specific algorithm and based on what you want to see, creators are going to potentially overtake just because you don't know what you're getting, as you said. You'll maybe I can finally find somebody who can talk about the Kings versus hearing the only time I hear about them it's that 20 they've only made the playoffs once in 20 years, which is going to
Hmm.
change. I firmly believe it, but
Yeah, you believe
you know,
that?
not really, but it's 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 a nice thought.
Love the optimism. That's
Yeah,
what you need.
thank you. Yeah, it gets me through the days, Dylan Cardwell tape like that's what I
Yeah, yeah,
need. But my
I
next
love it.
question, yeah. My next question is, do you have any advice for kids or adults who hope to build up a social media presence, either sports related or not?
Yeah, no, that's another great question, Ethan. I think the biggest piece of advice I would have, and this is something that I struggled with when I first started posting, is to number one, be your most authentic self. You should never try and be someone that you're not, or try and, I think it's great to take inspiration from other people and other creators, but you should never try and completely mimic their style because
Mm,
everyone has a different personality. Everyone brings something new to the table, and you have so much insight and personality that if you never posted before, no one has seen it. So they want to see you for you, not
right.
you for trying to be someone else. So that's big. That's a big piece of advice that I would give. And the other one is equally as important, I think, is drop all fear of judgment that you might get from other people. Because when you post online, you have to accept the chance that your coworkers might see it, your boss might see it, your family members might see it, friends from school might see it.
Hmm.
At the end of the day, if it makes you happy and you are proud of what you're putting out there, you should have no reason to stop or to hinder the volume at which you want to post at or what you want to share,
Yeah.
because at the end of the day, spotlight effect is real. People think everyone is only thinking about them, only watching them. It's not true. Everyone thinks about themselves at the end of the day. So if what you're
Mhm.
doing makes you happy, you're proud to share it, you're proud to post it, that's all you need. That's like a little mental checklist that you should go through. And at the end of the day, I started making videos, and I know a lot of other creators started making videos because it's what they wanted to post and it's what they wanted to see. You're not even making videos for other people, so to speak. Like a lot of the videos that I make, the skits that I make just because I think they're funny, and other people also just relate to that and they think they're funny too, which is great. I think that's amazing, but you shouldn't have to perform for other people. If it's something that you like to do and you're happy with, then just post and be consistent. That's the other big thing is, and it's very overlooked too. I've started posting 10 months ago and I haven't missed a single day. And I know that's been very imperative in the success that I've had so far is, just relentless consistency in what you're doing.
That's some fantastic advice. I'm looking to keep that in my back pocket. But
Thank you.
everybody who's watching or reading this in article format, that's some fantastic advice to take with you. And honestly, I feel like that can kind of relate to both social media and just life in general. Don't be afraid to put yourself out there and do the things that you're genuinely passionate about. And you know, I
100%.
pretty much I feel like you knew you were going to get this question. Like in the back of your mind, you had a feeling this is what's going to be asked to me. I have to finish with it though. I have to give you the same challenges you give everybody else. And I'm going to hold you to a higher standard here. I'm not going to take the Pablo Prigioni that you may receive. I need something really deep. I need to have no recollection of who this person is. Can you name an obscure NBA role player that proves you have elite ball knowledge?
Yes. I was waiting for this one. Yes. Yes, I can definitely give you one. And I will hold myself to the same standard that I gave earlier, where I'm not going to just give you a random name. I'm going to give you a guy who I actually watched. I can tell you their positions and I can tell
Yeah.
you the impact they had in the league. So, as I said, I'm from Boston. I'm a
Yeah.
Celtics fan. I was blessed with being able to watch the big three in Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, Kevin Garnett. Shout out Rajon Rondo as well. He should be
Yeah.
the big four. But after, the big three left, Ray Allen went to Miami, KG and Paul Pierce got traded to Brooklyn. I was blessed with the opportunity to watch Semi Erden and Luke Herringody on the Boston Celtics. And Luke Herringody, small forward, Semi Erden, center, 7-footer. I
Okay.
think they played 2 years in the league, and they were both packaged up in a trade I believe in 2011 or 2012 to Cleveland.
All
But I
right.
watched them for that 1 year in Boston. This was right around the time where I started loving basketball and I was obsessed with the NBA. And so, yes, as you said, you're a Kings fan. You've had some tough times. I'm not going to put myself on that level because I've definitely not had as bad of tough times that you have had, but I've definitely had my fair share.
No, I'll
And
give you
that
that.
Celtics roster, yeah, that Celtics roster was definitely a tough watch. But
Mhm.
yeah, Luke Herringody and Semi Erden will always hold a special place in my heart.
All right, I've talked to the EBK committee, and I think we're going to give it to you. That's EBK.
Yes,
Congratulations.
yes.
Yeah,
Let's go. Thank you.
yeah. Well, those are all the questions that I had prepared. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in, or thank you so much for reading this. However, you're consuming this interview. I know I want to end off with a bit of EBK myself. I don't know if this is necessarily elite ball knowledge, but it's the best that I've got. I'm going to give you Terry Taylor, former King and Bull, played 2 games with the Kings I believe he played on 2 10-day contracts. Is that EBK? Will you give it to me?
If you can tell me what position he played, I'll give it
I
to
think
you.
he was a point guard, I think.
Yes, I will
Okay.
give you that. Yeah, no, Ethan. Yeah, that's EBK. Wait, let's check with the council. Yeah, yeah, they go back to me. Yeah, you got
All right.
EBK.
Okay, well, we both have elite ball knowledge. It's been proven, everybody. So you can take my word for it. Um, Nick knows ball. He's got EBK, and he's gonna test you as well if you ever meet him in person. But don't come with, elite ball knowledge polls prepared. At
Yes,
least
that's
don't act
key.
like don't like give it up immediately. Don't be like, oh, your Nick knows ball. I have an elite ball knowledge poll. Be more nonchalant about it. I think one of your videos was when you meet LeBron James and you have to like act all nonchalant. Be
Yeah,
like that,
yeah,
everybody.
exactly. No
Yeah.
premeditated polls.
Exactly. But thank you so much for being here, Nick. It means a lot to me. I'm glad we could work this out. And everybody, go check out his content if you haven't already. It's some of the best that you'll find. And, maybe hop on the Nick Knows Ball bandwagon early because he's going places for sure.
Appreciate you, Ethan. Thank you so much, man. You're a great host. These were great interviews, dude. Keep
Thank
going.
you. Thank you so much. All right.
100%.
Bye, everybody.